Okay, still on external CSS. Now, in the last video, I created style.css. Now, let me do it again so that it can be clear. So I said, when you open your project like this, you go to this first button, a new file. You type style. It can be any name. It can be peter.css, but make sure it has .css, no space in between them. Just about for conventional sake. It says style.css. So that is it. Now, so that is what I have. In my index page, I'm going to remove any styling I've done before. Though we can use them together. Let's leave it. Okay. So in the style.css, so I'm going to do simply is to remove. Okay, let's remove the background here, background color, and let's see the page. You refresh it, go back to what it was. Even I'm going to remove the styling here. Okay, though we can use them together, but to avoid confusion. So I want to do all my styling in the external page. This one is not showing. Why? Because my name is not showing here. Okay, I know why. Because here I have applied styling here too. Okay, I remove that. Okay, that's it. Now let's do our styling using the third method, which I call external CSS. So I've created style.css. So, and that will lead us to my next presentation, which is called CSS rule. So you are going to declare CSS rule here in your external CSS. There are three parts to a CSS rule. Please, I want to say at this point that if you don't understand this thing deeply, don't worry. We still have practical session. So, but just make sure you are following me. There are three parts to a CSS rule. We have the selector, the property, and the value. Now, look at this diagram here. You write the selector. In this case, we have H1. I want to style all the H1 on the page. That is the meaning. Then, this part on the right hand side, we have the declaration. And your declaration starts with curly brace. This kind of bracket, we call it curly brace. And it closes with curly brace. Then you type a property. In this case, we have color. After the property, you have colon. Then you type the value. The value is like if you are typing a color. The value of your color this time is blue. It can be brown. It can be red. Then when you are done with this property and the value, you close with semicolon. You can continue with another property, font size. Then followed by the colon. Then the value, which is 12 pixels. So that is the value of your font. Then you close with semicolon. You can continue like that. You can write 1000 rule for this H1 selector alone. So this is the format of writing CSS. I hope you're able to get that. You have the selector, the declaration. In the declaration, you have property, colon, value, semicolon. Then another property, colon, value, semicolon. Then like that, property, colon, value, semicolon. Continues like that. Now, when we come to our own case, in our index.html, I want every H1 tag to have color white. And not only that, I want them to have a background color blue. And I want to give it maybe kind of a size. So if I come here and I type H1, all H1 tag. So you see, I can do it this way, even without dropping the closing curly brace. I type H1, I put space. What am I doing? I'm going to turn off this AI so that it doesn't confuse. I think, okay, I will check that one. So I have H1 tag. Now, what do I want to do? I would just want to change the color property to white. So you see what I did? Let me zoom. I type the selector. My selector is H1. So I'm telling CSS that, okay, look at my page. Look for every H1 tag on this page. Okay, where is my index? Here, okay. All the H1 tag on this page. Apply color white to them. So I type color, put colon, then the value and semicolon. So if I go back to my page and I refresh, nothing is going to happen. And I will tell you why. Because I have not linked this index.html. I have not linked with this style.css. Look at my mouse here. I have not linked two of them together. Because it is external. It's not part of the HTML. Unlike the embedded and the inline styling, which is done together in the index.html. And in web design, there is what we call separation of concern. You don't mix HTML with CSS. It's a good practice to separate them. That is why I would recommend using external CSS like this. So how do we now link it to our index.html? So you go to the index. Immediately under the title, before the closing head tag. Now this is the opening head. This is the closing head. So under the title, you put a link tag there. A link tag is a self-closing tag like this. It is self-closing. So it doesn't have closing part. It is self-closing. But it has some attributes. The number one attribute of link tag is href, or before that, relative. Real attribute. So this relative attribute, it has a value called style sheet. So you are just telling your index page that I'm linking this page with a style sheet. Then another attribute is href, hyperlink reference. I hope you remember this hyperlink reference. We use it in the anchor tag when we are doing menu. Href here, when we are doing menu. So in this case, I'm linking it with this style.css. If the name here is peter.css, what I'm going to have here will be also peter.css. But since it is style.css, so you say // it means they're in the same folder. The index and style.css are in the same folder. So that is the file I'm referring to. And the kind of document I'm linking to is style sheet. So these two properties are very, very important. By the time you do that, don't forget my VS Code is already in auto save. So I don't need to worry about saving. Make sure it is in auto save. But if you don't do that, you have to save and go back and refresh. What do you notice? It turns white. That is why, because the background is white, so they must turn white and they will not show because the background is white. So I want to go back to style.css and continue to apply another property. I will say background color. Say blue. Give it blue. So if I go back and refresh, you see that? The H1 tag has background of blue. Okay? So if I go back and I do what we call padding. What is padding? Padding means we are styling H1. In this H1 tag, let there be internal spacing. Give it breathing. The content in the tag, let them have breathing. So if I give it padding of maybe 10 pixels, that's how we measure padding, 10 pixels. I give it padding and I refresh. You see, it gives it space of 10 on top, below, on the right, and on the left. So let me increase it to 20 padding. And let's refresh. All right, so that is it. So I have that. Then I can give it border radius. Oh, no, it should be inside the curly brace. You close every declaration by semicolon. After the semicolon, you start another one. And as a good practice, it's always good to put them on different lines like this. I think I prefer this. So I'll put another attribute, property. I call it border or radius. Border radius. I'm checking time there. Border radius to be maybe 10 pixel. We measure it in pixel too. Now what will it do? Let's see. You see the rounded corner here. So if I change it to maybe 20 pixel, the rounded corner will be more noticeable. So that is it. You see that? There may be the width. I don't want it to span the whole page. I would say width is maybe 300 pixel. Let's give it width. Let's see how it's going to behave. You see that? You see that? That's 300 pixel. So I'm going to increase it now to, because we are designing. Designing is choosing size, choosing specification. That's what design is all about, even in engineering. So you see what I have there? So by just applying how many property? 4. Color, background color, padding, border radius, width. I'm going to send the list of CSS rules to us so that you get more familiar with all these rules. But you can learn them intuitively. They are not difficult. Width is width, radius is radius, padding, I've explained padding. That's spacing around the content of your element. So that is external CSS. Now, let's continue. Now, let's talk about this selector. Let's talk about this selector. Before we go to the practical section, we are going to talk about this selector, which is very, very important. So the next video, we'll talk about the selector.